Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday, June 25th. From the San Antonio Express News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day. You can expect possible thunderstorms and a high of 92. As COVID-19 case numbers surge in San Antonio and Texas, we'll have a story today on how contact tracing efforts failed to slow Texas's June coronavirus surge. In the garden, we'll have our beginner's guide to growing herbs from Calvin Finch, and Neil Sperry addresses readers' gardening issues in his down-to-earth column. On the food front, we're talking about easy ways to cook with summer fruit and vegetables. On a sweeter note, our taste team visited half a dozen local donut shops for a taste of what we've been missing during the pandemic. Look for a report on all of the good eats at expressnews.com. And now, your top headlines for the day. Bexar County's population is becoming more racially and ethnically diverse, with the number of Hispanic, Black, and Asian residents growing at a faster rate than non-Hispanic whites, according to new census data released late Wednesday. Of the 2,003,554 residents living in the county last year, more than 1.2 million were Hispanic, accounting for 60% of the population. That's an increase from 2010, when 1 million Hispanics accounted for 58.7% of Bexar County's population. Peggy O'Hare dives deeper into the numbers, including a look on how changes in Bexar County compared to the rest of Texas and which age groups saw the biggest changes. A customer at a San Antonio home improvement store, upset because an employee told him he needed to wear a mask, got into a confrontation with County Judge Nelson Wolf, who just happened to be waiting in line nearby. The customer could be facing criminal charges, said Sheriff Javier Salazar. It was an assault, Salazar said. There's no excuse for it. The employee of the stores were really just trying to help this gentleman. The judge was really just trying to help him. Scott Huddleston talked to several officials to find out exactly what happened and why such confrontations might not be uncommon. University of Texas at San Antonio Athletic Director Lisa Campos said the return of student athletes to campus for voluntary workouts has been a fluid process. Earlier this month, UTSA unveiled a phased plan to reintroduce players to monitored strength and conditioning. The first, with a group of 58 student athletes living off campus, began June 4th, and 3 of those student athletes tested positive. Staff writer Greg Luca caught up with Campos to discuss the next step in UTSA's return to athletic activity, the outlook for reopening the football season as scheduled on September 5th, and the greatest challenges presented by the coronavirus pandemic. Columnist Elaine Ayala writes, San Antonio College has become yet another example to Texas entities still clinging to its controversial namesakes and monuments. Buildings honored avowed or documented racist and slaveholders, and sports mascots that demean Native Americans or glorify their genocide. However, campus leaders recently banded together and formally requested that its mascot, the Ranger, be eliminated. It had been a long-standing demand by members of its Latino faculty and its Mexican American Studies students. They were finally heard. Ayala has the next steps in making the proposed changes happen at expressnews.com. Next up are your need-to-know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more in your Express News subscription. San Antonio officials reported 4 new COVID-19 deaths and nearly 350 new cases on Wednesday as the coronavirus continues its relentless spread. Governor Greg Abbott warned on Wednesday that the reopening of Texas could be in jeopardy because of the dramatic spike in COVID-19 hospitalizations and other key indicators plaguing the state's fight against the virus. Texans traveling to New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut will now have to quarantine for 14 days upon arrival, marking a turning point of the tables from when the Lone Star State did the same in late March at the start of the pandemic. As cases of the novel coronavirus continue to be confirmed in the Texas licensed child care centers, Governor Greg Abbott has ordered new rules, less than 2 weeks after the state dropped earlier emergency restrictions for providers. The number of COVID-19 cases at Amazon's warehouse in San Antonio is rising, and some employees are frustrated with the company's response and worried about the potential exposure to the virus. Volunteers were on reconnaissance Wednesday near Fort Hood. Riding all-terrain vehicles, they scoured the countryside in a grim search for the remains of a Private First Class Vanessa Guillen, who vanished from the post nearly 2 months ago. Bexar County officials gave 100 masks on Wednesday to each of the more than 3,500 businesses that had pre-registered and will distribute more Saturday on the south side. Former San Antonio Mayor Julian Castro's involvement in the Joe Biden presidential campaign is picking up. Castro is set to hold a virtual Latino outreach program for Biden on Thursday. An Edgewood Independent School District trustee who took her spot on the board just last month posted a photo Sunday on her Facebook page showing her children hanging her husband with a noose in jest. George A. Williams Jr. began his career teaching at an inner-city elementary school in Florida, and he wanted to make sure his students saw themselves in the books in his classrooms, something that he didn't experience until he was in college. So he began building a library of children's books that featured Black characters. The collection now numbers around 80 books. He reads one each night with his sons, 7-year-old Aaron and 6-year-old Jackson. He now is working to expand the audience for those stories well beyond his home. And now the fun stuff. Without a chance to showcase his skills at an NBA combine, former Marshall standout Jordan Burns decided to return for his senior year of college at Colgate 2 months after declaring himself eligible for the draft. San Antonio Police Officers Association President Mike Hell's attempt to equate a profanity meant as a mere exclamation with the repeated use of a hateful racial slur is a big topic of conversation on this week's edition of the Express News' Puro Politics podcast. A fiery installation by Carlos Castro Arias turns up the heat at San Antonio's Art Pace Gallery. Unite Food, a new startup out of California, has launched a trio of protein bars in flavors San Antonio is sure to appreciate: churro, Mexican hot chocolate, and a peanut butter and jelly. With LaMarcus Aldridge ruled out for the Orlando restart, the Spurs have turned to journeyman Tyler Zeller to round out their center rotation. That's all for today. This was your Express Briefing for Thursday, June 25th. My name is Luis Vasquez. Consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage on all the stories you heard today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast in your Apple Podcast app, as it really helps the show. Have a wonderful day, everyone.